We will continue with the Christmas story. Today we will read the story titled The Fall. She held the hot cup in her hands, letting the warmth spread through her and ease the stiffness. She took small steps, watching the liquid hit the rim of the mug as she moved into the living room and sat in her armchair. Carefully, she brought the scalding hot drink up to her lips and took a first sip of Christmas cheer. It always brought her back to Christmases in her childhood. She eased into the calm of it and turned to look out the window. There was a small dusting of white powder on the window frame and little dots of white covering the yard. The snow wasn't strong enough to stick to the ground, but it was still a beautiful sight. The woman stared for a good while at the dancing flickers of snowflakes as they moved past her vision. She could almost pretend it was happening just for her. The slight buzz in her pocket woke her out of her reverie and she was brought back to the moment. Instantly her body stiffened, just a little, and her heart sank a fraction in her chest. She pulled out her phone and looked at the message. It was from someone named David on one of the dating sites her sister had signed her up for. Her pain deepened and she felt like she might fold in on herself, crushed from the weight of it. Sunday would mark 2 years since he'd been gone. 2 years of lonely nights, solitary birthdays and empty holidays. Now as she looked back at the snowfall, marking the season as officially winter, it felt almost as if no time had passed at all. The wound was fresh and seemed to cut deeper with each lingering thought into the past. The woman clicked on Davis's message and viewed his profile. He was reasonably handsome, well-educated with a good career. There was no reason to turn this down. She knew what her sister would say if she were there. But the woman was alone, looking at a lifeless screen, holding on to a dream she would never recover. Instinctively, she dropped the phone. It fell to the ground with a thud on the floor. She turned her eyes up to the ceiling and tried to will the tears to back down from their attack positions. Slowly, the tears started to lose their power and faded back into the background. She took a deep breath and tried to clear her mind. She didn't want to focus on the absence she felt or the hollowness in her life. She didn't want to think about anything but the falling snow outside. The woman picked up her mug once again and took a longer sip, burning the edges of her mouth. Abruptly, she stood up, knowing the only thing that might ease some of her discomfort. She threw her auburn hair up in a tight bun and covered it with a pink beanie. She only wore this one when she went to visit him. She still remembered the Christmas when he bought it for her. At the time she thought it was silly to wear a pink hat with a puff ball on top, but now it felt like one of the last remaining tethers to him. She grabbed her gloves and her keys, leaving her phone discarded on the floor, and headed out into the cold. The wind whipped around her as if trying to invite her into the winter dance. She ignored the calling of the snow and stepped into her car. The warm air started to blast full force as the engine came to life. Carefully, she pulled out of the slippery drive and down the street to her destination. Christmas carols poured into the car, echoing the joy of the dancing weather. It was a symphony of jubilating nature. The feelings of it did warm her to see, but only for a moment before she remembered why she was driving and what was missing. When she pulled into the parking lot, her car was alone. It was what she preferred in this particular setting. Other people would only make things more difficult for her. She put on her gloves and wrapped her scarf more tightly around her. The wind had become more wild in her drive, more determined to involve her. She resisted. The woman followed the path that she had become much too familiar with the past 2 years until she reached the stop she was looking for. The stone stood there, unchanged and unmoved, with the same letters carved through it. The flowers she had placed there, the last time she had visited, were dying and wilting away. Little droplets of snow lingered on some of the petals. She made no effort to stop the tears this time. She put up no resistance as the pain started to consume her. She knew this part was necessary if she were to feel any sort of relief. She could feel her knees starting to buckle under her and she let herself fall to the ground. She reached her hand up, pulling off her glove, and traced the lines of his name in the stone. "Did you know him well?" came a soft voice behind her. She didn't bother to turn around but nodded. "Yes, he was my husband," she answered through her tears. There was a sharp inhale behind her and she turned around carefully. "I didn't know he was married," the man muttered. The man before her had deep charcoal skin that shone like onyx against the falling snow. His fierce eyes were the crisp blue of a fire center. "How did you know him?" she asked, standing up now to face the gorgeous man in front of her. The man shoved his hands hastily in his pockets and gave her a sheepish expression. "I was his college roommate. We used to be very close, I only just heard." His statement trailed off and the rest of his sentence hung in the air like a toxic fume. "I'm Matt," he said finally, clearing the air. He held out a hand for her and something in her heart twisted. It felt almost as if this hand could be the start of something new, a change or an escape from the dark cave she had banished herself to. She hesitated for a moment. Suddenly, the wind whipped around her, warmer than it had been, and pushed her forward. She almost fell into the man. She smiled to herself and felt that she already knew the answer. She reached out her hand and shook Matt's, that was still outstretched. Her heart instantly felt lighter and a smile melted away so much of her pain. For the first time in 2 years she felt like it might actually be a Merry Christmas. God will bless you. We will continue with the Christmas story. Today we will read the story titled First Dance. I wonder how it feels. Her soft voice sounds wistful. She is poised on the edge of her seat. Back straight, hands folded in her lap. Ankles crossed and tucked back, concealed under her skirts. Her blonde head is slightly tilted to her left. Her dark blue eyes gaze steadily at the dance floor. I have just returned Lady Penelope Strath to her seat, my mother having shamed me into putting my name on at least one dance card. Now I'm looking forward to a card game or two and brandy. Normally at this time of year, I disappear to my property near Scarborough. Spending Christmas letting the North Sea winds clear the cobwebs from my head is infinitely preferable to attending one of my mother's Yuletide house parties. These parties seem to have one purpose only, to parade young, giggling and mostly interchangeable girls in front of unwilling bachelors like myself. But an unfortunate and untimely storm prevented my escape. Pardon? I frown as I stop in front of her. I was about to look for a graceful way to exit the ballroom, since I had executed my duty for the evening when I heard her whisper. To dance. I wonder how that would feel. She whispers, her eyes skirting away, her cheeks staining pink. Forgive me, sir. I spoke out of turn. I had been scanning the room, trying to locate my mother, wanting to make a neat exit without her notice. But the young lady's comment intrigues me. Thus, I focus on her. She is not unpleasant to look at. Her soft green gown may be a season or two out of style, but it flatters her. She doesn't seem to harbor an obvious illness or contagion. Why do you wonder such? She had piqued my curiosity. She lowers her eyes, though her posture remains picture perfect. The tip of her tongue nervously caresses her lower lip, which is then gently tucked in, only to be released again in a becoming pout. My cock takes note. To tell the truth, all of me takes note. I can't remember ever being touched. I was merely wondering. Forgive me, sir. I did not mean to waylay you. Her voice fades as she speaks. I hear the first strains of a waltz and on impulse, I extend my hand to her. May I have the honor of this dance, milady? Her blue eyes fly up to me, her mouth, those plump pink lips, form an O just before her gloved hand covers them. Oh, sir, forgive me, I did not intend, she stammers. You see, she sighs. I see a tear poised at the corner of her eye, just before she lowers them again. May I? I ask and nod toward the empty chair next to hers. Mutely she tilts her head in agreement. Pray, tell me what I am missing. I look at her hands, once more calmly folded in her lap. My legs, sir. She whispers. She shakes her head. Please, sir. Do not concern yourself. Her voice is even softer. She seems to be fading before my eyes. Milady, you are either a consummate actress or you are harboring a painful secret. You have intrigued me. Will you confide in me? Sir, please. I do not know you. I do not look to be made sport of. Forgive me for having spoken to you. She protests softly. Then allow me to rectify the situation and introduce myself. My name is Oliver Marvels. Due to my father's unfortunate death, I am now the Earl of Strathmore, your host. I confess that I would have happily waited for another 30 years before accepting the burden of the title. But we don't get to pick our paths, do we? I pause and wait for her respond. She glances my way. May I extend my condolences on your loss, my lord. Please accept my gratitude for your hospitality. And I agree that we don't have a choice about our fate. My name is Lady Augusta Farthing, third daughter of Lord Charles Farthing, Baron Portland. I'm sure my father would have preferred at least one son, but such is his fate. The lady had still not revealed the reason for her initial question, or her hesitation to dance. So, I probe further. Lady Augusta, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance. And now that we are introduced, may I know the reason you turned down my request for a dance? Her deep blue eyes flick my way as she inhales sharply and swallows. My apologies, my lord. But surely you have heard. I'm the mongrel. She whispers the last word. Forgive me. I do not think I heard you correctly. I lean in a little closer. Still looking down at her hands, she shakes her head. You heard right, my lord. For the first time this evening, her posture wilts slightly. Every one of the ton knows that I am my family's burden. She sighs. Well then, that explains it. I rarely associate with anyone of the ton. Nor do I listen to any of their whispers. Bunch of idle busybodies and gossips. I scoff and sit back in the decidedly uncomfortable chair. Why do we make these girls sit on them? I'll have to ask my mother about that. So, milady, pretend that I have been out of the country for the past 18 years or so, and tell me your story. Milord, please. It is not an appropriate topic for an occasion such as this. She demurs. Lady Augusta, may I remind you that I am the host. This is my house. You are my guest. Isn't it my duty to ensure that all my guests are happy and well tended? I will give you my word as a gentleman that I will not repeat any you share with me. She scoffs softly. You, milord, are undoubtedly the only one who does not know of me. She takes a breath and seems to gather her courage. I was born with one foot that is not like any other. My gait is awkward and dancing nearly impossible. She exhales sharply and squeezes her eyes shut. I see. I rub my chin and thought. May I assume you never had a season? She nods, a tinge of pink coloring her cheeks. And this house party, mayhap is your first outing? Again, she nods, her shoulders hunched a little more. Then, Lady August, will you indulge me and allow me to show you what it feels like to dance? Please give me 5 minutes. Her head turns sharply to me. You will? How? The incredulity is plainly written on her face. I smile, give her a brief bow. 5 minutes. I promise and step away. The band has already played its 2 obligatory waltzes for the night. The trick is to request an unprecedented third. But as I am the host and I pay their wage, the band master is more than willing to call upon Mr. Strauss one more time. Having thus secured his promise, I walk back to where I left Lady Augusta. However, she is no longer seated. I spot her with her hand gripping the arm of a middle-aged gentleman as they make their way toward the stairs. Oh no. That just won't do. Lord Farthing, I presume. I sketch a bow. Milord. He returns the greeting. I do believe that Lady Augusta has promised this next dance to me, sir. I hold out my arm to her. You wish to dance with my daughter? He sounds suspicious and protective. I smile. If I may, sir. Still holding my arm out to the lady. Pink flushes her cheeks, once again. Her eyes downcast, but a small, tentative smile on her lips, she transfers her weight from her father's arm to mine. I feel oddly triumphant as I lead her to the dance floor. I can feel her pulse quicken and her breath catch. Milady, if you would please, put your feet on top of my shoes. I will show you how it feels to dance. I whisper. She stares up at me, as if she doesn't understand my words. Then she looks down and carefully places first one and then her other slipper-clad foot on my freshly polished, black patent leather dancing shoes. My valet will tut-tut, but my breath hitches when she looks up at me. Her mouth is slightly agape, catching a full breath and a laugh. Her eyes sparkle. Ready? I ask. She smiles and nods. I take her right hand and tighten my arm around her back, pulling her scandalously close to me, and step out. Oh, milord. This is heaven. The sound of her sigh, the feel of how her body melts into mine, how she lets the music flow through her, almost undoes me. I know I have a stupid grin on my face, and will confess to myself